Hello everybody, I'm here today with Robbie Vann-Adibe, who started his career on the technology side of financial services in New York, working with Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, First Boston. He spent the majority of his career working in Silicon Valley in high growth orientated organizations as well as large companies. Some of the companies he worked with included Oracle, Viant, 3Terra, Tracker, all leaders in their respective fields. He's worked on both sides of the pond, originally from the UK and then having spent a lot of time in the US and then now in Europe. He understands the ecosystem incredibly well, and he's here to talk to us about influence marketing. Robbie works in a company, his own organization, Impulsis, which does a lot around influence marketing, and influence marketing is what we're here to talk about.
Hi, Ruby. Thanks, Manny, for the intro. Yes, influence marketing. It's been around a while. I think in the form that most people understand it today, it's 10 plus years at this point. And you're right. For many folks, Brexit, Cambridge Analytica was the first time they heard of it. Like many tools that we've developed over time as humans, it's something that can be used for good, it's something that can be used for bad, and it can be used for pretty much everything in between, right? But at its core, it's a very simple concept, right? There was a study done in the very earliest days of the practice that showed that 3% of people online drive 90% of the conversation on any topics. Right, and these group of folks get called a variety of things, but in the most common term to refer to them today is as influencers, right? And these folks exist across platforms, across mediums. We've always had influencers. It's as an idea, it's been around for a very long time, but the way that you practice it today with the advent of social media and all the platforms out there is perhaps very different than how we used to think of it.
So on that note, Robbie, what is influence marketing and how is it different from traditional marketing?
Sure. So it's collaborative. It's a strategic discipline, and it's aimed at developing relationships with individuals who generate high impact conversations and have an established relationship of trust with the targeted audience for your company. So you're trying to sell a product or service. There are a group of people out there who have relationships with them. And if they say thumbs up, that's good for you. And if they say thumbs down, that's bad for you. It started off, the whole arena started off with this concept of word of mouth marketing in the early days of social media. But then it developed from there. It's a practice that works in both B2C areas and B2B areas, and it can have a very significant impact on your business if you do it correctly.
Could you possibly provide some user case examples of where influence marketing has been used with, say, B2B and B2C clients?
Sure. So, you know, the obvious ones are in the beauty industry. You know, the Kim Kardashian tweet or Instagram post that creates a huge market for a product are obvious examples. A less obvious example in the B2C space might be Tesla. Right? If you look at Tesla as a company, very interestingly, they've never run anything even remotely resembling a traditional ad. And they've never run anything that looks remotely like an online digital activity. So there's a phrase called pay-per-click, right? When you go to Google and you see at the top of the thing there's a bunch of things that say ad, those are pay-per-click ads. Tesla's never bought one of those in the whole of its existence. And the reason that that's important is that, you know, building marketing activity is typically quite an expensive activity for a company. The other car companies spend between 4 and 8% of their revenue on marketing activities. Tesla spends, a much smaller number. I think the number that's been quoted often is about 50 million a year, which is, tiny when you look at the impact that that's having on the business. So Tesla's a great example. Many of the technology companies today that are B2B utilize influence marketing as a technique. In fact, for many years, SAP had a head of global influencer marketing that was very active in allowing them to sort of compete against all the other players in the market and win and gain market share.
Okay, and are there any tools that can measure the ROI on such activity?
There are tools that allow you to manage the process. There are tools that allow you to see what kind of impact you are having. And there's a huge debate that goes on about exactly what the ROI is on these activities. And let me explain that further. So when you're running influence programs at scale, there's a lot of toing and froing between you and the influencers. That relationship management activity has a set of tools that allow you to do that in the same way that you have customer relationship management systems for sales. There are influence relationship management systems for managing your influence programs. In the same way that CRMs have metrics that tell you how well your sales activities are doing, those tools have metrics that tell you how well your influence marketing is doing. The reason ROI is a little tougher to measure is that very few companies practice a single form of marketing activity. If you're a large scale organization, you may be running TV ads, you may be running print ads, you may be doing pay-per-click activity online, you may be doing banner ads, and so on and so on. Attribution of which part of your marketing mix is actually having the greatest impact on people buying your product or service is still quite a difficult thing to do, and it's an area that involves a lot of discussion, a lot of argument, and I don't think the argument is settled. There's a lot of different views and opinions on this stuff. Generally, for the organizations who have been practicing influence at scale, many of these organizations will say that influence marketing has the best ROI of all the marketing channels that they execute against. And there's a lot of data out there that suggests that is in fact true. What I can do is perhaps share with you some links post this session that you can share with the audience on this topic.
So Robbie, it's good to sort of call on your experience from having worked and lived on both sides of the pond. Many of my USP clients, they've been talking about influence marketing for quite a while. In fact, since pre-pandemic. They've been talking about how it delivers tangible returns within the deal cycle. Could I ask, what has been your experience within the PE market and influence marketing? Sure.
So, the conversations in the world of private equity are quite different than some of the day-to-day conversations that occur in operational businesses. The private equity mindset is all around what changes could be made to a company and how much will they cost that impact the business's performance parameters, specifically, often most the financial parameters, so that with some future liquidity event in mind, and it's usually not that far away. The holding time for a lot of PE deals is between 3 and 5 years. So they're essentially, as a community, looking for magic bullets, changes that they can make to businesses that result in substantial value creation. And so, one of those areas that is ripe for change is marketing. In many of the companies they're acquiring, operations and the systems to run operations have been dealt with some years ago. They've implemented CRMs, and the sales function is operating in an optimal fashion. Finance, same. The area that is very much in flux is marketing, and it's because the practice of how marketing is being done is literally changing on a real-time basis. Right? In the last 10 years, we've seen massive changes in how communications are done to target audience that companies want to get to. So the opportunity that these companies have is to implement influence at the center of the marketing stack, right? So what that involves is changing the processes by which they do marketing. It involves introducing technology to help them execute influence programs, and the impact of those activities can be seen relatively quickly. And that's one of the things that the PE community really enjoy about applying this tool to their portfolio companies.
So do you think it'd be fair to say it's almost one of the last bastions of transformational change, as in the future of what will be happening within PE portfolio companies?
Last is probably too strong a word. Current is probably a better word, right? Okay. There will always be another thing. I guess as a technologist, I have seen that there are many eras of technology, and we just happen to be in one where the marketing practice within organizations is the thing that isn't dramatically in flux. I have no doubt that in 5-10 years time, there will be another part of the business that's in flux. We'll have figured marketing out, at least for a while, and then it'll all change again. But yes, marketing is one of these areas where a lot of attention needs to be paid to that practice within the business currently.
Thank you, Robbie. That's been really, really insightful. Is there anything else you would add, when you sort of sit there and think, there's people out there still wondering if influence marketing is real, tangible, or if it's just, a social media phase? What would you say?
It's a thing, and it's a hugely impactful thing for businesses. There was a company that I was on the board of that happened to be one of the influence marketing technology players, and we very much sort of followed the drink your own champagne model, the opposite of the shoemaker's children. If you're going to be an influence relationship marketing technology platform, you better make a lot of your marketing about influence marketing. And the reality was, we were a bootstrap company, so we didn't have any money really to do any other kind of marketing. Well, what happened in that business was, by using influence marketing as our primary form of marketing, the growth that we experienced was pretty dramatic. And when I look back on our experience, there's a rule of thumb that a lot of the venture community use, which is, if you want to create 10 million in ARR, then you spend 3x 30 million of that to create ARR. Our metric was the inverse of that. We created 10 million of ARR with 3 million of investment in that company. And it's because we didn't spend huge piles of our money on pay-per-click ads, getting in front of people that didn't care about the business. Our whole focus was with influence relationship management activities, and that led to the rapid growth of these businesses. And that activity can be applied to any type of business, be it startup, be it mid-stage, be it large organizations. It's a practice that works across the board. It differs depending on what type of company you're dealing with. Like if you're a big company or a small company or a B2B company, or the things that you do might be different, but the overall concepts are the same. And therein lies a very interesting opportunity for your viewers here.
Thank you very much, Robbie. It's been a genuine pleasure talking to you, and thank you for demystifying influence marketing.
Thank you.